Okay, my name is Jennifer Delafrat, and I'm with the Middletown Police Department, and I am here interviewing our mental health clinician with the police department, Ellen.
Yep.
If you can just say your name.
Sure. I'm Ellen Fitzgerald-McCallum.
And what is your current position and rank?
So my current position, I'm contracted with Middletown Police Department. I actually work for Newport Mental Health, which is a community mental health agency for Newport County. My current title, it changes all the time. So right now I am just a clinician. I used to be referred to as a mobile crisis clinician, and at some point I'll be an emergency services clinician. So it really does depend on the funding.
Okay.
Yeah.
And now with Newport County Mental Health, we just have 2 locations, right, in Middletown?
That's correct.
So is it 65 Valley Road
Yeah.
and then 127 Johnny Cake Hill?
That's right.
And there's no more in Portsmouth or Newport?
No.
So and what about Tiverton or Bristol? Is that something different?
No, so Bristol is serviced by EdCap, East Bay Community, Tiverton, Little Compton, Jamestown, and all of Quitting Island come under Newport County.
Okay. How long have you been a clinician?
I've been a clinician for 12 years.
And has it been all with Newport County Mental Health?
No. I started in mental health in 2002, so that's 18 years. I started as a case manager in a community mental health center in Johnston and worked my way up to become a clinician. I went to graduate school, I went to BU, got my clinical degree there because it's a better program than Rick. Rick has more of a macro program, that's policy. So I like working with people, so I went to BU. And then through the course of being at Gateway, which is another community mental health center, I would go out and do emergency assessments for, oftentimes for Bristol Police actually.
Yeah, and where is Gateway? Is that in Providence?
Gateway is all over. So Gateway is in South County, Gateway's in Cranston, Johnston, North Providence area, and they're in Tuckett, Central Falls. They're everywhere in Rhode Island. They're huge.
And what made you decide to become a clinician? Like, is this something that you thought you always wanted to do, or is it something that you have another
No.
job prior? Or?
I actually tried not to become a clinician. So both my parents are social workers. I was brought up very socially justice oriented. I went to a Catholic church where Christian service was huge, and we worked with like refugees from Haiti and refugees from Laos, and you know, my parents' idea of Thanksgiving was to eat and then to go to a shelter and serve dinner, but we never had any money. So I actually started out after I graduated college in real estate. So,
Oh, really?
Yeah, I did. I was working in commercial real estate, and I was hoping to, but I hated business because it was so heartless. So then I stayed in real estate, but I started doing some housing development for disabled and elderly housing. So disabled housing is also for folks who have mental illness. But that was still a little, it wasn't heartless, but it was still a little, it wasn't hands-on enough. And so then I became a case manager and found my population, which is adults who have mental illness, and I've been doing that ever since.
Now, why did you transition from like the Gateway to Newport County Mental Health?
So when I was at Gateway for like 14 years, and I had started at the very bottom. So by the time I got my degree and everything, I wasn't making that much money. So it wasn't just a financial decision, but I wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually like quadrupled my salary by leaving.
That's pretty, you can't complain.
You know,
Yeah.
so by leaving. And then I was at Johnson & Wales doing young adult stuff, and I was doing my own private practice, and then I did full-time private practice for quite a few years, and then my husband got ill, and I didn't have the mental stamina to do full-time private practice anymore. So I actually went to BH Link first, because I knew I could do crisis evals, because crisis evals are very quick,
Yeah.
and not a huge investment, just an investment in the moment, not over time. And then when this job came up, the hours were better.
With Newport County Mental Health
Yeah.
or with the police department?
With Newport County Mental Health. But it was as a police liaison too, so I was like, oh, this is interesting, because it's always been interesting to me. So I live in Cranston, and I went to the community police classes in Cranston, because I wanted to get to know, because being an emergency services clinician, I was an emergency services clinician for a long time. I had to deal with all the police departments in the state, and so I had very different experiences depending on who I was talking to. Providence police could give a shit, whereas Pawtucket were amazing.
Yeah.
You know, and so it was very different. So, so that's why I went to the Cranston Citizens Academy, because I wanted to see how Cranston kind of.
Oh, the police department, like
Yeah.
their citizens, yeah.
Yeah, their Citizens Academy. I got to know Cibalone over there, and I liked him a lot. And
You say Cibalone?
Yeah.
He was my firearms instructor.
I love Cibalone, and he's my neighbor.
Yeah.
And so, you know, he's a ball buster, and I loved him. And like, he was very supportive with Mark and everything. And so yeah, his wife's super nice. She teaches over at Washington School, so it was just a nice, you know, contact. So when his position came up as working with police, I'm like, oh, that actually is interesting to me. So it came up as part of the state opioid response. All right, so SAMHSA, substance abuse, mental health, I forget what the second S is, administration. So it's the federal administration gave the state, I think it was $20-some million in that ballpark.
For Rhode Island.
For Rhode Island, because at the time, Rhode Island was 10th in the nation for opioid-related deaths. The governor started a task force on opioids. SOAR was funded, BH Link was built, and police departments and EMS were asked to partner with mental health clinicians to hopefully assuage the opioid crisis. Now, my experience is not in Newport County is less about opioid, it's more about alcohol, right? So we were
Really interesting.
Mhm.
In like just the obviously Middletown, Portsmouth, Newport,
Mhm.
Tiverton, Bristol, no, Tiverton, Jamestown,
Little Compton.
Little Compton.
Yeah.
All booze.
A lot booze. A lot more booze than, I mean, even when I worked at BH Link, it was more booze than it was.
Interesting.
And you know, and then we were seeing more at BH Link, we were seeing more cocaine laced with fentanyl. Yeah, so that's what the position started out to be, was to really address substance use. But that's not what it is, because really what it is folks have significant mental health issues.
Right.
They just do.
Right.
So, and that's what, when I look at my chart, because I have to record all of my data, it's all mental health, or it's co-occurring. There's never,
I was just gonna say co-occurring though. Do you
Yeah.
think it's more like co-occurring than substance abuse alone,
Yeah.
or do you like it's obviously mental health is probably the highest,
mental health is the highest.
and then but then it'd be co-occurring second, and then
Yeah.
substance abuse at the bottom.
Yep.
But I feel like it's tough with substance abuse and co-occurring or one or the other, because I feel like it goes hand in hand.
It does go hand in hand. That's true.
Like people that, like my experience, people that abuse like
Yeah.
heroin, opioids,
Uh-huh.
either have depression, anxiety, like some type of something.
That's true.
So like it's hard, I feel like, to differentiate. Like, have you came across somebody that is just strictly?
No.
Yeah. Okay.
No.
Alright. So then, when that position opened up, you put in for it,
Yep.
or and you were already with Newport County Mental Health.
No, I was with BH
at Link.
Yeah.
And then that's okay, got it. So then how did it come with the police department?
So, the SOAR grant was meant to work with EMS and first responders. So, in Middletown Police, when approached by Newport County, was like the first police department to jump on board. I was like, yes. So that was really good.
And that was under Chief Sorry?
No, that was, who was interim?
Ferris Corley.
So, I don't know, because Cure had started right when I started. So I don't
It
know.
might have been just right behind
Yeah.
before that. Got it.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So,
And then you're mostly based here,
Yeah.
right? And then do you bounce back and forth?
between here and Newport, I was going to Newport a lot more before, Corona.
Now, when they need you, and if it's after hours,
Mhm.
if you're on call,
Mhm.
you can respond on scene, right?
Yep.
And you have the ability to commit
Mhm.
people if an officer is unable to find, like, I have the ability to commit someone or bring them to involuntary hospital trip if I feel like they're deemed harm to themselves or others.
Yeah.
Now, once there's a point that I can't get there, that's when I can call you.
Yep.
Right, and then you obviously, with your experience and your,
Because I can fill out the paperwork.
yeah, okay.
Mhm.
Now, when someone is filled with the paperwork, what is their hold at the hospital? Is it 8 days?
It's 10. It's
10.
up to 10.
Up to 10.
Up to 10.
Okay. Now, if with the police department or anywhere, if you guys are not on call or not here, is there anybody on call?
So, no, we're only on until,
Certain hours.
certain hours. And then it defaults to
To
what
the
it
police department,
is.
yes, what it's
Yeah.
been before,
Mhm.
okay.
Yeah.
Now, what did you think about the process of becoming a clinician? We don't have to talk about generically like beforehand or the Newport one. Like, how did you think getting that position went for you? Like, you said it was interesting.
So, initially, I was excited about working with police because I've been a clinician for a long time. So I wanted to see like actual situational stuff and what was really happening on scenes. And so, because I was usually the person on the phone calling the police, saying, "Can you please
Yes, can you
respond?"
meet me? Yes,
Yes,
or yeah.
yeah. So, so it was good to be able to be on scene and actually see what happens.
Right.
Yeah, and be useful.
What do you think about it, like now that you're able to see it with police firsthand? I'm sure there've been times when it's probably not handled well.
Actually, I haven't had, my most negative experience really has been, Portsmouth.
Yeah.
Because, so usually, we have a nice collaborative relationship. It took me a while to get to know people here, but once you get to know folks, it's pretty easy, right? So we had to cert an individual, well-known to Middletown Police. She was speaking in tongues in Portsmouth, and they were there for 3 hours trying to talk her out. And there were 18 first responders on scene, which is just too many, and very upsetting for the client. Not just the clinicians and the people involved, but the client.
Right.
There's 18 people outside of her house.
That's a lot.
That's too many.
Yeah.
You really only need 2.
Right.
Maybe 3 tops.
Right.
So, and she wasn't responding to anyone. We had permission to go in. We had the key, permission to go in. So and I'm not about to tell a police officer any point of law.
Right.
Not at all. What I find is that police officers are often willing to tell me all about mental health.
Yes,
And so
I'm sure.
That can get frustrating here
Yeah.
and there. Because I'm not going to tell you about point of law. So when I'm telling you somebody is not suffering from a mental illness, I know what I'm talking about. Not you
Right.
specifically.
No, I
You've
get
not
that.
done that.
Yeah.
But,
Sure,
it has
for
been
sure.
done a
Yeah,
lot.
I can imagine. Now, regardless of the Portsmouth situation, do you think is it a task force or was it this like just position in the Quinnipiac Island? How do you think that has gone with people with suffering from mental illnesses?
Well, what I think,
Do you think they've been benefiting from that in the community?
I hope so. I mean, there's been a few times where we've been able to work so that this person is diverted from the court system and is going to mental health,
Right.
which is so much better.
Mm-hmm.
There's been quite a few times where, you guys have been able to misdemeanor release somebody and I've been able to cert them to get them to the right system. Because the criminal justice system is not going to help anybody.
In Rhode Island,
Yes.
especially in Rhode Island.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, no. The DOC, they used to have much better psychiatric treatment than just everything's falling apart.
At the ACI and stuff like that. Okay. Now, what do you think is the most gratifying part of your career so far?
So it's really been a couple of clients watching them go from devastating mental health crises. One of my clients had bipolar, significant, serious bipolar disorder, and had a terrible manic episode. And another one was, her trauma history was just, and both of them are now social workers.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they went and got their master's degrees and are significantly successful social workers.
Do you think you've seen a lot of recurring people, or do you think there's still more recurring people than people that have been helped?
I think that the system is set up so people will fail, which is unfortunate. And
It's like
so
a loop, almost.
So it's, people get institutionalized at a young age, right? And so one of the woman I was talking about who had a terrible trauma history, she also economically, she was just positioned so that she was going to fail, right? So, you know, her mother had been on disability, she was on disability, her kids were going to be on disability, you know, it was like generational. She broke it, she broke the system, but it took an enormous amount of energy. And I don't think people get that at all. They don't see the institutionalization of folks. People have a very different view about how folks live as opposed to how it actually is.
Right.
Nobody can live on $782 a month.
So do you think like funding has a big part of that?
Yes, so like, all right, so you're on SSDI and you make, or SSI, okay, so if you're on SSI, you make $782 a month, and then you decide, I'm gonna go get a job, well, the government's gonna keep 50% of your dollar. So what's the impetus for you to get an on-the-books job?
There's no reason.
There
Right.
isn't.
It's kind of like with COVID, like unemployment,
Yep.
the paychecks, like why would people go back to work and make less when they can just collect the unemployment and stay safe and stay at home?
That's right.
Now, do you think like funding in general with mental health lately, do you think it's helping, going down,
I don't know.
status quo?
I mean, luckily we got a big cash infusion because we got this grant, a CCBHC grant, which is a Certified Community Behavioral Health Center grant, again, through SAMHSA. But, you know, depending on, whoever the administration is, oftentimes depends on where the funding is, you know, so. I don't know, we were dead ass broke
Right.
prior to getting this, award.
Yeah,
the grant.
The team.
Yeah.
Now, and then we'll finish up with the last question. What are ways do you think that can make that like crisis intervention team, or what is the official name for it?
Well, so for right now, there isn't. We're the mobile crisis team.
So,
right?
okay.
But I think what's going to happen is, especially with, I think reform is coming for mental health, yeah, and for how folks respond to mental health. I mean, we are conditioned as people to call 911,
Mm-hmm.
all right? So, you know, I don't support defund police because we as a nation have been told when there's a crisis, call 911.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what the hell are we supposed to, you know? So, no, do I think police should be going out on their own to a mental health crisis? Absolutely not, because no, you're not, you know, I'm not expert in law, you're not expert in mental health.
Mm-hmm.
I love the collaborative effort. That's what I like about it. Yeah. What I see is that it's going to be enhanced. That's what I think is going to happen.
Do you think they'll have like more people?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do.
Alright, well, thank you, Ellen. Now, is
You're
there
welcome.
anything else that you feel like you need to give to any prospective students thinking about education or career in the mental health field in regarding law enforcement or anything
So,
like that?
if you're going to pursue mental health, you know, make sure that you take care of your own mental health. And that, you know, people get burnt out because I don't want to say they care too much, but it's important to care in the moment, but not take it home.
Which makes sense.
Yeah.
But thank you so much.
Thanks, Jen.